Today we are looking at Jarrad Branthwaite, the £75 million centre-back that Manchester United are targeting. Also a potential deal for Mason Greenwood to swap places with Jadon Sancho at Borussia Dortmund. And someone has finally met Sheikh Jassim, and there is proof that he is real. Let's get into it. Hello and welcome to Stretford, Paddock. My name is Joe. We're here at Old Trafford today, and if I were to analyse it in a single word, I'd say bleak. Not too bad, but not nice. It isn't nice at all. But we've got loads of stories today. We're going to start with this one coming out of the Rain Group, which is the existence of the up until now elusive Sheikh Jassim has been confirmed by the co-founder of the Rain Group. He said that he met the Qataris. He said that the bid was very real. He said he met Sheikh Jassim in New York. He's a very smart guy. He said smart about 3 or 4 times, so he wants you to know that he's very smart, which, fair enough. He said that he didn't want to overpay for Manchester United, and that is the official reason why the Qataris pulled their bid after Jim Ratcliffe's bid had been accepted. There was that time, wasn't there, where people were expecting them to make a sort of final 11th hour bid to try and take over Manchester United, that it never came. And reportedly, according to this guy who, was conducting, of course, Rain Group with a team of people and the company who were tasked with selling the club themselves. They were the one actually doing this deal on behalf of the Glazers. He says the reason that bid never came is because the Qataris deemed the club to be getting too expensive, essentially. They didn't want to spend all that money. They didn't want to look like they'd been had over in the market. And I think, on one hand, I understand that. And on the other hand, I sort of think, well, there was nothing stopping them doing what Jim Ratcliffe did, which is just buying a smaller portion of the club for less money. If you thought the money was getting out of hand, you could have always tweaked the deal. I think there's this understanding that they only ever wanted a full sale, which I think a lot of United fans want. But if you consider that, potentially, if you're a United fan like Sheikh Jassim, there were suggestions that he was, you would think you'd do anything you could to get your foot in the door. And now you look at, in contrast, the power that Jim Ratcliffe and Ineos have. Basically, 2 months, when did it start? The 24th of July, the 24th of December this deal was agreed. We're less than 3 months after that. And basically, they're running the whole club. They're the ones appointing new CEOs. They're the ones sorting out the stadium. They're the ones who are going to be doing transfers. They're the ones who are going to be getting a new manager in the summer if that's what it needs. So, the Qataris could have had basically full run of the club for a lot less money if they'd have been willing to be a bit more flexible. So, I think a lot of people now seem to realise that maybe it wasn't all that it initially seemed, and also that we're actually getting more of a sort of, not a full sale, but more of a full takeover than we expected from Ineos for their 28.9% investment. We're actually seeing them basically run Manchester United. Next up then, this is Jarrad Branthwaite, the 21-year-old Everton centre-back. We played against him at the weekend. He's a very physical, big, imposing kind of guy, but he's an athletic and good on-the-ball footballer as well. This is Dave McDonnell in the Mirror saying that Manchester United are targeting, and he continues to be at the top of the summer lists for Manchester United. It's not just him. I think Fabrizio Romano had mentioned that United are after a centre-back. Other journalists make it very well clear that United are after a centre-back in the summer, and it makes sense. You look at the injury record of Rafael Varane, who's actually stayed pretty fit this season, but you look at the situation with Martinez, you look at the fact Johnny Evans is 35, turning 36, you look at the fact that Harry Maguire was almost surplus to requirements last season. United need another centre-back or two if we want to start challenging at the top, because yes, we've got numbers. I mentioned 4 people there, and there's still Victor Lindelof. But once Martinez is injured, the drop-off in terms of ball-playing ability, in terms of the ability to cover his man and get sort of right into the opposition players, isn't really there. We see, how often do you see Harry Maguire a step late, just making a foul on a player that maybe a Martinez would nick the ball off? Branthwaite is a very athletic, very physical player. We saw him again, obviously, at the weekend, didn't we, playing for Everton. I think he's one of those players that he's a young lad, he's 21. There's a mistake there, but when you look at a physical specimen, when you look at the sort of player he is, the speed, the power that he's got, I think he's the sort of person that could complement and Martinez very well. You've got your ball player, and then next to him you've got a slightly more aggressive, slightly more athletic player, and I think Jarrad Branthwaite could be exactly that. 75 million quid is a lot of money, but when you look at what Wesley Fofana cost, Ruben Diaz was 65 million, Harry Maguire was 80 million, Fofana was 80 million, for those who don't know. That's kind of what you pay these days. If you're an upcoming, young, English centre-back being sold by a Premier League club, it's going to be minimum 50 in it before you even sort of brought his kind of natural talent into account. If he is the guy that people think he is, 75 million, whilst it's a hell of a lot of money and there's a big reputation that you're going to have to sort of fulfill there, it kind of is the going rate, unfortunately, which is mad to say about football, but that's where we are. So Jarrad Branthwaite continues to be a top target for Manchester United, and for me that's a very exciting one. He's the sort of player United need. A bit of an injection of youthfulness into that centre-back lineup I think would be a very good idea. Let me know your thoughts on Jarrad Branthwaite in the comments. Do you think he's the player that he's cracked up to be, or do you think this is Everton needing a bit of cash? We've seen obviously their woes with financial fair play, and maybe they're hyping up this guy a little bit more than it needs to be so they can get that extra money. If that's cynical, let me know in the comments. Next up then, this is an article coming out of the MEN, and it's referencing the words and the article of Ekrem Kunur, who's a Turkish journalist who's worked for ESPN, TNT Sport. I don't know much about him myself, but that CV suggests that there is some reliability there. He's talking about a potential, I would say swap deal, but it's almost Dortmund doing the swapping. Potential for Jadon Sancho to leave Dortmund at the end of the season, and for them to target Mason Greenwood to replace him. Now, again, in this article in the MEN, it talks about how Jadon Sancho himself supposedly doesn't believe that Dortmund will want to sign him at the end of the season. He's talked about his love for the club. He's kissing the badge. He's, obviously happy to be back at Dortmund, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they want him permanently. And there's still, what we got, 2 months left of the season, 2.5 months left of the season. There's plenty of time for him to get, 6 goals, 4 assists, and maybe he will be a person on the radar for Borussia Dortmund. But we've got a big situation to deal with in the summer with Jadon Sancho, because we assume that this Dortmund thing is just like yeah, we want him back, he's great, we love the old Jadon, we'll have him in a heartbeat. If he doesn't perform, if he doesn't do the numbers, then they aren't just going to pay 40 million for someone who maybe isn't the player he once was. However, Mason Greenwood, on the other hand, seems to be a potential for them. And again, Mason Greenwood's someone that we've talked about enough on this channel. I'm not going to go into the politics of will he stay, won't he stay. If he doesn't stay, there's only really a sort of a handful of clubs in Europe, I think, that have enough money and have the sort of the outlook on him as a professional where they would take him. I think there are certain clubs who just couldn't do that deal. I don't know about Borussia Dortmund. I don't know the inner workings of that club. I don't know what they're willing to deal with and what they're not willing to deal with. But if this journalist is saying that that's an option, then I believe that could well be an option. I think there's obviously clubs in Spain that like the idea of signing Mason Greenwood. He's been there for a season, which again, politically and sort of in terms of backlash, is obviously going to soften the blow of any other Spanish club signing him. He's already played in the league for a year. We'll see how that pans out. Germany's a different prospect, of course, with the fan ownership, the power that the fans have in Germany. Maybe that will affect things, but the one thing that I almost get from this is the fact that Jadon Sancho doesn't think Dortmund are going to sign him at the end of the season. And now where we're going to put Jadon Sancho? He can't stay at Manchester United, I don't think. Even if Ten Hag leaves, I would be very surprised if he stayed at Manchester United. United need to find a buyer for someone who hasn't, let's be honest, played very good football for what will be 3 years in a row. It's going to be a difficult one to get any money for Jadon Sancho. So we'll have to wait and see on that one, and we'll have to wait and see on Borussia Dortmund's interest in Mason Greenwood. But if they were to have him, that would be perfect. That would be brilliant. Get rid of him, send him to a club who's got a bit of money. You can probably get 30 million, 40 million quid for him, and then that whole saga can be over for Manchester United, and we can move on with new, young, fit players who actually want to be here and who don't, hopefully will do some background checks and don't end up signing people who are of the wrong character. United need people who are all pulling in the same direction at the moment, more so than ever. Also, next up then is the price of Ten Hag. So you're looking at one of United's biggest sales this summer, or not sales, should I say, outgoings this summer, could be the manager. However, usually with an outgoing, United get somewhere between 400 grand and about 6 million is the usual sale price. We're going to have to pay 10 million quid to get rid of Ten Hag. Now, in terms of FFP, I wonder if Ten Hag has done the ultimate 4D chess here, right? Because he knows if we don't get Champions League football, we'll have a lot less money to spend in the summer. FFP is going to be a nightmare. So here's what he's done. He's gone, right, if I'm so bad that they want to sack me, but we haven't got Champions League football, that's 40 million we've lost from not getting Champions League, and another 10 they'll have to pay to sack me. That's 50 million quid off the FFP budget. If they sack me, they can't sign anyone, so they have to keep me. I keep my job, I get another season, and I can turn it around next year. This is the ultimate 4D chess from Ten Hag. How to not get sacked. Be so bad that we financially can't afford to sack you. It's perfect. It's what I'd do. I don't know if Ten Hag's doing that. People will use words like professional pride. I wouldn't have any of that. I'd be doing everything I could to be staying in the dugout. In all seriousness, I don't assume he's doing that, of course, but it is an interesting point that, more so than ever, United have to be sort of very, very tight with the coffers and the purses. United don't have a lot of money. would getting rid of Ten Hag almost pushes over the edge of having nothing to spend in the summer. It's an interesting point to consider, but we'll have to wait and see. Thank you very much for joining us. We're going to be back this afternoon. We've got Uncensored. We've got all sorts coming out this afternoon as well, so make sure you stick around on Stretford Paddock for all of that. Get your thoughts in on all of these news stories. Jarrad Branthwaite, could he be the answer at centre-back for Manchester United? Have to let me know. We'll see you in a bit.